All right, good morning, everybody. We have 10 a.m. here at our office in New Braunfels, so we will go ahead and get started. This is the annular eclipse weather briefing for Thursday, October 12th, 2023. And it's based on our latest forecast information that we have as of 10 a.m. this morning. Just, some important updates to note here. This is another one of several briefings that we will be doing between now and the annular eclipse on Saturday afternoon, morning. And we'll have one additional briefing tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. And then on the day of the eclipse itself, we will be doing the briefing a couple hours earlier as all of y'all put your final plans into action. So we will be doing a final briefing on Saturday morning at 8 a.m. So that's two more briefings after today, tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. and Saturday morning at 8 a.m. And then just a little bit of bookkeeping before we get going. This webinar is being recorded and it'll be sent out to you later this morning, early this afternoon, once everything is finalized. And we will be opening the floor for questions at the end of the briefing. We have a questions box in front of us here, so we will see them as you enter them if you have them, and we will get to those at the end of the briefing. So jumping right in, let's talk just a little bit of the basics on the annular eclipse itself. So just some brief background. An annular eclipse occurs when the moon passes between the sun and the earth while basically it's at its furthest point from earth. So that kind of leads to the ring of fire effect that you see in the path of annularity during an annular eclipse, because basically the moon optically doesn't perfectly cover the sun like we would see in a total eclipse. We're looking at about 5 minutes of that full ring of fire effect in that path of annularity, which you can see on the left here in this graphic from NASA. Essentially runs from the Midland Odessa area, at 11:45 Saturday morning, down into our hill country, Southern Edwards Plateau, and coastal plains and I-35 zones as you get closer to noon. So that's a path of annularity that's about 125 miles wide. And again, we'll be seeing that in our area between about 11:50 and noon on Saturday. Just another graphic on the timeline. We have that 5 minutes of total annularity, but it is a bit of a slow build up and then taper on either side of it. So we have a few of our major metros, as well as Uvalde, which is pretty much dead center in the middle of the path of annularity. And you can see that basically we're going to start seeing effects from this eclipse about 10:20 in the morning on Saturday. And we'll build up to that complete annularity at about 11:55 across most locations in South Central Texas. And then we'll see an end at about 1:30 in the afternoon. Another thing that we really want to emphasize for everybody out there and everybody that we've got coming in to view the eclipse is the importance of eye safety in an annular eclipse. The only safe way to view it is essentially, special purpose solar filters or eclipse glasses. That's going to be the common way that people are viewing. So it's very important that you're protecting your eyes and not looking directly at the sun with the naked eye, as that can really result in harm, basically. An important reminder is that regular sunglasses are not, sufficient. They're not gonna give you the kind of eye protection that you need. And then another subtlety that we, have been emphasizing is if you're photographing the eclipse through a camera, viewing it through binoculars or a telescope, it's important that those devices also have solar filters. You don't want to be looking directly into those things, even if you have eclipse glasses on. So it's just very important that everybody who's viewing the eclipse on Saturday is doing so safely, namely with the use of solar filters and eclipse glasses. All right, so getting to the main points of the weather forecast and the latest information. So we have a cold front that will be approaching the region, through today, and it'll ultimately enter tomorrow. But as that occurs and it approaches and we stay out ahead of it, we are expecting temperatures to warm to or just above normal, pretty much area wide today and tomorrow once again. And then as we get to tomorrow morning and early afternoon, we'll see the front push into the area and through the area. And in its wake, we'll see breezy north winds, particularly tomorrow night through Saturday morning and even afternoon. And while we're expecting mainly a dry frontal passage, so no precipitation, we can't rule out an isolated shower or storm primarily during the overnight hours Friday into the pre-dawn hours Saturday. And that would be pretty close to the Rio Grande or south and west of a line, approximately kind of from Rock Springs to Uvalde to Pearsall. So mostly a dry front, but there is that chance of an isolated storm over far southwestern areas. On the day of the eclipse proper and during that time of peak annularity, we are looking at dry conditions, but it would probably be a little more accurate at this point, kind of in a change from previous briefings, to say that we'll be looking at partly cloudy skies across the path of annularity. And we say that because it's looking like we could have more partly sunny skies and a filtered type of sunshine over the western parts of the eclipse path leading up to and during the peak annularity. And we continue to monitor trends. So when we say we're monitoring trends, namely we're looking at the timing of the front and how quickly it's going to get through the area tomorrow and into Saturday. If it pushes through very quick, we'll probably see dry air filter in fast, and the clouds will clear out quicker. But right now, the trends have kind of been favoring partly sunny skies over the western part of the path of annularity, and better sky conditions, better viewing conditions further east. Just looking at some forecast charts to illustrate the progression of the front from tomorrow through Saturday. You can see it'll be approaching the region from the north and west already by 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. That's the times that these maps are basically showing. So it'll be approaching from the northwest at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, and it should be largely through the area by the time we get to 7 a.m. Saturday morning. If we look at the low and high temperature forecast behind the front on Saturday morning, it'll probably feel like a touch of fall out there for some, particularly over hill country, where we're forecasting low temperatures in the upper 50s on Saturday morning, probably a little bit milder further south and east. And then we'll warm up pretty nicely on Saturday afternoon. We'll probably see mid to upper 80s over the higher terrain of hill country, and upper 80s or lower 90s further southeast along the US 90 corridor and over the coastal plains and San Antonio metro. Getting into kind of the sky cover and the kind of 3-hourly forecast. So I'll be showing you a couple different steps here through late Saturday morning and into the early afternoon when we're expecting the peak viewing. So starting at 10 a.m., you can see based on the cloud cover graphic at the left, that kind of partly sunny to filtered sunshine character that we were talking about on the main point slide. And you can kind of see how it sets up similar to where we may see the precip overnight Friday, early Saturday morning, where the further west you go, approaching the Rio Grande River, is where you're probably going to see the greatest amount of cloud cover. So you want to draw a line roughly from Rock Springs to Uvalde to Pearsall. If you go west of that point, you're likely going to be contending with cloud cover Saturday morning at this time. But then the further east you go, say towards Kerrville, San Antonio, Pleasanton, the sky conditions should be more clear and the viewing should be a little more favorable. Temperatures at this point should be low 60s over hill country and then lower 70s further south and east. We fast forward to the lunch hour, which is just a few minutes after that window of peak annularity. You can see the general cloud cover trend is still holding. We could see partly sunny skies, further west as you get closer to the Rio Grande, and then, skies continue to trend mostly sunny to mostly clear the further east you go. You can see temperatures will be warmed up by several more degrees by the time we get to lunch on Saturday, probably 70s across most of the area, though we could have some areas of hill country that are still in the upper 60s. And finally, we see that the overall trend as we go through the late morning hours into early Saturday afternoon will be for the clouds to be trending down, but we can see even at 2 o'clock as the eclipse is kind of starting to wrap up we could still have, scattered clouds around over western portions of that path of annularity. So that kind of overall trend, as we stepped through those 3 times, shows you what we had been talking about, which was we're probably going to be contending with a little more cloud cover over western parts of the path of annularity, with the best viewing being further to the east. So what we're showing here is what we call like a reasonable worst case scenario for a planning purpose. It's just kind of based off stats and the model guidance that we use to produce our forecast. So you can see that this reasonable worst case scenario is showing you the cloud cover at 10 a.m. on Saturday. Again, kind of hits that same message of the further west you go in that path of annularity, we're probably going to be contending with clouds, filtered sunshine, perhaps even partial obscured viewing of the eclipse, with the best viewing being further east. And then that trend, this is now 3 hours later at 1 o'clock Saturday, continues. So again, further east you go, better viewing. Further west you go, we're going to potentially be contending with filtered sunshine and a mix of sun and clouds. The other thing that we want to address with the front coming through tomorrow is the potential wind gusts behind the boundary. You can see that we could be looking, from as early as tomorrow afternoon through Saturday afternoon, wind gusts in that 15 to 25 mile an hour range. Perhaps even if you get into the San Antonio metro and coastal plains, we could see a few gusts approaching 30 miles an hour on Saturday afternoon. And the big reason we bring this up is because we know there may be a lot of outdoor viewing going on leading to this eclipse. So we just want to remind anybody out there that's planning those outdoor events to make sure that loose items are secured, namely tents that may be set up at these events. Make sure you're securing them because we could be dealing with occasionally breezy to gusty winds, really from as early as tomorrow afternoon all the way through Saturday afternoon. Hazard risks. Overall, we're not anticipating any widespread significant hazards, through the period of the eclipse. We do have some minor concerns about heat both today and tomorrow when temperatures climb, to and a little bit above normal out ahead of that cold front. And then at this time of year, whenever you have a cold front come through, it brings drier air from the north, breezy conditions. So there's always a limited fire weather threat. So that'll be there, by tomorrow afternoon, and then should last through Saturday while the winds stay up. So there are some limited fire weather concerns as well. And then just a little reminder for those of you that might be looking for point-specific forecast information, kind of hour by hour. We do have an IDSS forecast points page on our website. All you need to do is navigate to weather.gov/forecast points or scan the QR code shown here on this slide. And it'll take you basically to a page where you can select any point to get kind of hourly forecast information in the template that you see here at the left. This isn't a real-time example, but it's an example of what you'll see if you go through the exercise of picking a point and pulling up that hourly forecast info. To make it a little convenient for each of you, we have provided several locations within that path of annularity here. So you can either navigate to that prior QR code and website, or if you have an interest in any of these 6 specific points within that eclipse path, the QR codes for each of those locations are provided here for your convenience and reference if you are interested. And then to summarize everything that we've talked about here from a forecast perspective, we're going to have a cold front pushing through the region tomorrow afternoon and early evening. Behind that front, we're going to see winds pick up out of the north, and that'll lead to breezy to occasionally gusty winds from as early as tomorrow afternoon through Saturday afternoon. In terms of the important sky conditions, the best way to describe it at this juncture is a mix of sun and clouds is forecast for Saturday during the eclipse. We're looking at, more partly sunny skies and filtered sunshine potentially over western portions of that path at annularity. Again, roughly west of a line from Rock Springs to Uvalde to Pearsall. And then really the best viewing and the best and most favorable sky conditions will be points further east of there: Kerrville, Fredericksburg, San Antonio, Pleasanton. So we're looking at that kind of split in sky conditions across the path, the way things currently kind of stand. And then, finally, forecast uncertainty still remains, namely regarding that front and how fast it gets through here. That will have direct impacts on the sky forecast for Saturday. So given that the uncertainty is still there, it'll continue to go up through this afternoon and tomorrow. So that's why we're continuing to do these briefings. And as that new information becomes available, we'll be relaying that here in these briefings. So with that, that wraps up everything we have for you today. Just some contact and next briefing information. We've got a variety of social media, phone and email contact info provided for y'all there on the right. If you want to get a hold of us and talk to us a little bit more about the forecast for Saturday. And then a reminder that our next briefing will be at 10 a.m. Tomorrow morning, October 13th. And it'll once again be delivered right here on GoToWebinar, and it will once again be recorded and emailed out to each of you once we are done. One final disclaimer that the info in this briefing is time sensitive and subject to changes in our forecast as we go through that. So with that, the floor is open for any of you guys that may have questions, and we would be more than happy to answer those. So again, if you do have those, feel free to drop them into the question box, and we would be more than happy to help.